Hello everyone, today I'd like to talk about the Association, that 1960s, maybe early 70s group that was popular for their multi-part harmonies. But before I get into what I really want to talk about the Association, let me kind of do a quick rundown of how I got into them. And it's for me as a kid in the 90s, majority of the time would be the radio station, and in this case it's true as well. It would be on the oldies, and really it was just one song, and that song is Cherish. Now that song, it's one of those that for me was really overplayed. Like for the oldie station I was listening to, the only song from the association, well, I take that back, maybe Never My Love, but Cherish was the one that always came on. And not only always came on for this group, but constantly, like a few times a day at least. So it's like if I happen to turn on the oldie station, Cherish would most likely come up. And for that song, to me, it's like a chick song or something like that, that type of thing. And that's song where I wasn't really interested in lyrically or anything like that. I did like the way they sung it from a multi-part harmony perspective, and I think that's what made them unique for me. Is that there's no other group I've heard on the oldie station, at least, that sounded like them, and that's not like folk music as well, things like that. So that's my kind of my intro into the Association. Now I got this album not too long, in I'd say mid 90s, really super cheap, and this has been essentially my go-to album because there's no other album I have of the Association, but this is it. And I didn't know they have a few, like, to me, in my opinion, monster hits, like Windy, and I mentioned Never My Love, and then Along Comes Mary. When I mean monster hits, to me, I don't know from a Billboard perspective or whatever, Cashbox at the time, whatnot, but to me, monster hits would be like, this is their famous songs, and be played constantly, and everyone knows this group from those songs. And those four songs I've mentioned to me are really truly monster hits of them. So, and at one point in time, I've been listening to this. Windy was my favorite song because I love the melody, the upbeatness to it. Do 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 do. And then I always thought it was about the city of Chicago, but anyway, so. And it wasn't too long after, quite a bit long later, I pick up the record itself, because I really like this a lot, and I saw this at a garage sale. I went ahead and picked this up. So, if you want to know what the difference between the two, from a sound quality perspective, not much of a difference. I was kind of actually impressed with the vinyl in a sense that it was really well taken care of, and hardly, if any, pops or scratches or anything. It's pretty clean. It's almost like you just bought it new. And then from this, comparing the sound, if you've seen my CD versus vinyl video, not much of a difference at all. I mean, I couldn't tell the difference whatsoever. So, and then not too long after that first CD, I picked this up. And this is essentially a subset of the Association's greatest hits, but kind of remastered. So that's why I decided to get this, because it sounded a little bit better to me from my perspective than the greatest hits. So this is basically my go-to Association album. Now let's talk about the meat of this program. And I consider myself just a casual Association fan. I've got nothing against them or their music or anything like that, outside of the monster hits, which I love. Although Cherish, again, I think it's kind of, for me, it's one of those overplayed songs that it's so. But I'm a casual fan of theirs, okay? And I did listen to their other songs, besides the ones on the greatest hits, like through like streaming or YouTube and things like that. And they're similar sounding songs. Nothing that really stood out, but nothing to complain about either. I think they're just okay for the Association, and maybe that's why I don't think they ever got that big. outside of those 4 or 5 songs that they had, because everything else kind of sounded similar, and it's just, kind of a mid type of music. But what I wanted to talk today was this album, The Association Live. This is an album that they did, was in 1970. It's University of Utah in Salt Lake City. So they did this live album specific to be released. For the public to listen to. And I got this from a multi-family garage sale. So it's one of those I picked up really cheap. Didn't even need to look at the records themselves. I just, can't go wrong at this price. And, took it home, started to listen to it. This is the first thing I went ahead and listened to. And in the very first song, called One Too Many Mornings, from what I understand, this is a Bob Dylan cover. And it was really good. I've never heard of this song before, let alone from The Association. And it started out pretty good. But then after that song, the very first song, the whole album seemed like it fell off a cliff. I'm going to try to explain why. And the more I think about it, and after repeated listenings to, I think I listened to this 3 straight times just to kind of absorb it and make sure I'm listening to things correctly or not misinterpreting things, or maybe just, something. I just wanted to make sure I absorbed this properly. And at the end of the day, to me, this album should have never been released. Or put it another way, if you're going to make a live album, The Association Live is not the way to do it. Not the way to do it. Okay, let me explain why. Okay, outside of the very first song, everything else it fell apart to me. It just absolutely fell apart. And when I mean falling apart, there's multiple things. First of all, and this may have to do with the venue at the University of Utah and how things were, production wise, how things were recorded, but for some reason the sound was uneven for me. It seemed like they're using the newer technology instruments. I don't know that you would seems like there's a lot of reverb. Hard to explain, but it that kind of is almost front and center with the vocals, and I don't know. It seems kind of weird. It just listening to it's kind of weird. Number 2, speaking of vocals, I don't think they did a good job with the vocals, and I'm talking about the group themselves. Now, again, it may be the recording, the production, and whatnot, but still. If there's an issue with the recording production, I can understand. But usually if there is, if the live album, if the artist doing the live performances, if the performance is good, it kind of just it takes over. You wouldn't really know the production as much, or the flaws from the production or the venue as much as the performance itself. And I have listened to quite a bit of live albums, and albums that technically speaking shouldn't have been recorded because of the venue or because of the technology back in the day. Like, I'm thinking back in the 50s, 60s. I've listened to quite a bit of jazz albums that are from small clubs or venues that that wasn't really tailored for recording onto an album. Yet, even with the flaws, you can tell the performance was good. It overshadowed any production flaws and whatnot. So, it didn't matter, right? It's just you're listening to it for the performance. In this case, it's quite the opposite. The performance was mediocre to flat out suck. I don't know how to explain it. And now, I'm not saying every song on here outside of the first one was sucky, but they were either, again, mediocre to pretty bad. It's just, again, it's a combination of the vocals. They don't seem inspired or whatnot. The instrumentation with some of the songs, it seems pretty heavy on the reverb. And again, this could be a recording thing, but I just listening to the whole album, it made me want to, and I did this 3 times, right? Just to absorb it properly and not thinking the first time it sucked and then that's it. It's just a really bad way of doing a live album. And the third reason that I think this one is just what not to do with a live album is that all their songs on here are essentially the same as their studio recordings. I mean, it's basically they're just re-singing everything, and there's no like different instrumentations. And then sometimes when you go to live concerts, they might do things a little differently here and there to shake things up, sound different. I'm not saying just an acoustic thing or things like that. They might do different like riffs or extend some things here and there for concerts, change things up a bit. With this live recording, pretty much everything is to the book. You know what I mean? To the book, like just like the studio recording. And because of that, and with everything else I mentioned, this sucks. I mean, if you listen, if you're gonna do that and it's gonna sound like this, it's better not to do it and just listen to the studio recordings. Now, if they had changed it up a bit, things like that, it might be worth it, but at the end of the day, this is not the way to do a live album at all. It just kind of ruins everything to me. I mean, I have a now somewhat of different perspective of them, the association, from a live perspective. If I was like born and raised and grew up and had an opportunity to see them in concert live, and then listening to what I've listened to on here, I'd be totally frustrated and disappointed. And for me, if this is what I would have experienced, I would have just said, man, I wasted my money. Just go back and just listen to their studio albums, whatever they are, and that's it. Be done with it. That's where I'm at with this album. I mean, that's how bad it is. It's bad in the sense, not only do I not want to listen to this any longer, but it's one of those things where I think they're a pretty bad live group, like performing live. Now, I'm sure I'm going to piss off a lot of association fan base here, and so be it. They might sound good live. I really don't know. Again, I'm going off of this album. This is truly their only album they made direct. I mean, with every intent to be released as an album, and it just didn't work for me. It's quite the opposite. I have more of a negative feeling now with the association. And put it this way, to sum this up, okay? This album, the way the performance sounds like a group way past their peak, right? This is one of those like reunion tour type of concerts where 20, 30 years later they come back, they go to like a smaller casino or something in Las Vegas and do a reunion concert, and everyone's like 20, 30 years older or something like that, and it's just, the performance will never be close to peak, their heyday, but it's really for the fans, right? The fans, the lifelong fans that wanted to see them, that never got to see them, and they're finally doing a reunion. No matter how bad the renditions are or whatnot, you don't care because you got your fans and they're gonna love it no matter what. This is the album to me. This is what it sounds like. I mean, this is their performance. It sounds like a reunion tour, like many, many years later after their peak. And the irony in all this, after having said that, is they did this in 1970. Technically speaking, it's still their peak because they released like, Never My Love and Windy or something in a couple albums, like maybe just a couple years before this concert, like what, 68, 69, something like that. So they're to me, this is still their peak years, but they sound like, you know, a reunion tour 30 years later type of like performance. And man, that's the problem. I mean, it's like with this album, they kind of fell off the cliff, and maybe it is. They made, from what I understand, they made a couple more albums later in the 70s, up to what, 72, 73, and those didn't chart at all. And there's no singles or anything charted. They just basically fell off the cliff. And this, listening to this, if that's the case, this should explain why. I mean, it's just, they're not. This is not the way to do a live album. This is the most disappointing live album I've heard thus far. And I've listened to quite a bit of live albums over the years. And this is below mediocre. This is one, again, this is, if I was an artist or a group and I started to become popular, you know, and I'm doing a tour and I want to do a live album, listen to this, take notes, and don't do this. Literally, don't do this. Just don't do this. Don't do this at all. I mean, this is just bad. I don't care what anyone else says. Now, the highlight besides the very first song, the Bob Dylan cover, and that's, you know, not saying much, but there's on this record at least, there's, at least at the start of the records, they have this like dialogue, like, I don't know, they're talking to each other, the band members, and maybe to the crowd. And I think a lot of it are like inside jokes, or if you had to know the band in order to understand what they're talking about, because otherwise the jokes don't really hit me at all. I don't get it, you know. But there's one that I did laugh, and I thought it was the highlight of the entire album. Was one guy, I didn't know where it came from, but he basically said, and I paraphrase, "This is the reason why we have 5 token white guys." When I heard that, I knew exactly who that was. That was Larry Ramos, right? He's the only non-white guy on this band. He's a Filipino that is a very good instrumentalist and everything. He was the one who sung or co-sung on my favorite song, Never My Love, and so forth. And if you Association fans know, he wasn't the original member, right, of the Association. It was a bunch of white guys, but one of them left, some kind of trip or something to India. I don't remember. And then they asked him to take over. Larry Ramos, it's this guy, the Filipino, this guy right here. So, and he came from the another band, the Minstrels or something like that. So anyway, that when they were talking, I had no clue who was talking until I heard that line of this is why you have 5 token white boys. And I knew who it was, and I thought it was funny. I thought it was pretty funny, just that one line, and that was the highlight for me for this album. That's pretty much it. So I don't know if you're Association fans listening to me and are pissed off, but I'm just talking like it is. This is not what to do if you're doing a live album. I'm sorry. This is just one of the worst live albums I've ever heard. Now, there could be others that I haven't heard, but don't get this. It's just not worth it. And do yourself a favor. If you want to make live albums, this is to take note. Again, a class to take notes of what not to do. So anyway, let me know your thoughts. All right, thanks. Bye.